Hey guys, Midget here, bringing you another Walking Dead video review. Today we're reviewing episode 3 of Walking Dead Season 2, and it's called Save the Last One. This one was, it was an okay episode. It starts off with Shane in the shower, obviously like shaving his hair, and we don't know why he does that until, the final couple of minutes in the episode, so I was kind of wondering why he was cutting his hair. He looked kind of paranoid at the start, so that raises even more questions, to be honest. But then later on, Shane and Otis are running like from the walkers in the building, and you can tell well, there's a voiceover from Rick telling Laurie a story. I don't know what it was about. I can't remember, but it was something, just telling Laurie and about Shane and about something else. So nevertheless, it was a voiceover from Rick, and well, the thing was, Daryl was sleeping and Carol woke him up with her, crying, so he got a bit like touched by that, I think, in a sense. He didn't get angry. I thought he got angry at the start, but as soon as he gave Carol the nod, like that, I thought it was because he felt bad for her. So he saw she was sad, and him and Andrea go out into the woods. Dale sort of objects and says, Andrea, you're not going anywhere, but she's a bit angry with him right now since she almost died because of him practically not giving her a gun, which is her gun in all fairness, so he has no right to take it away from her. But it's just because she lost her sister and he thinks she might be suicidal, so I don't know. But they decide to go look for Sophia, and later on we do find out that they find a walker that's like, it's hanged and it's got a pin next to it with some writing on, and it says got bit, might as well quit, the world's gone to shit, something like that. It's just a quick rhyme. I found it quite funny. The rhyme, obviously, it's kind of funny, Andrew being sick, obviously, and Shane and Otis make a plan, because they escape the walkers and are on these, like, shelves or whatever they're on. I don't know, but Otis tells him the plan that he's going to go into the locker room and he's going to, do all these parkour skills and stuff like that, and Shane just needs to get past them through that little, like, hatch or window, and it's a 20-foot drop, so, obviously he's got quite a big drop and needs to prepare himself for that. But what happens is, Otis does everything correctly. He upset, he falls down and there's a walker grabbing onto his leg, but Shane obviously kills him, the walker, and leaves Otis to what he said he's going to do. So what he says he's going to do is go, into the locker room, distract all the walkers and let Shane pass with all the supplies. So Shane does that. He's tossed all the supplies out, but because of the, like, the little loudness of him jumping down from the shelves or whatever it was, some walkers, remembered, not remembered, but, heard that and decided to go towards him, and just about as he's out the window, he chucks everything out on the floor, 20-foot drop. He's, like, holding on just onto the ledge, and, then a walker, like, grabs him, and so he shoots the walker, but he's unprepared. He was getting prepared, but then, he was hanging out a bit wider. He wasn't hanging onto the wall anymore, he was hanging onto the walker, so he shot the walker and he dropped straight onto the ground, and I think it's something along those lines of a sprained leg, or a broken leg, broken ankle, broken leg, foot. I don't know, but whatever. And and then Glenn and T-Dog arrive at the Greene house, and where, like, Glenn's very caring and T-Dog just doesn't give anything. Glenn's like, shall I ring the doorbell, because, there's obviously some people living here and they're quite normal, and T-Dog's like, but we've gone past that, he's obviously heating up a bit, and they meet Maggie, who asks them if they've closed the gate, and obviously they said yes. She lets them in, makes them something to eat, but we don't see that, and then Shane's injured basically, and he makes his way through the walkers basically, shooting every single one of them, because he hears Otis, doing their plan. He said Otis will shoot 3 times, but I think that was before, but nevertheless he still did that again, and he regroups with Otis. I was quite surprised. I thought Otis was going to die at that point, but Carl wakes up and tells Laurie about a deer and goes into like a seizure, you know, starts shaking, and, you know, Hershel doesn't want any more blood from Rick because, basically, Rick has donated so much blood that his body could, you know, just basically give up and shut itself down, and he could go into another coma or something like that. But, you know, he just wants Carl to be alive, so he decides to, you know, go through, and, you know, he doesn't die, you know, good for him, I guess. And then Carol joins Dale on top of his caravan, you know, looks out for, she just says, I'm just going to sit here. But obviously she wants to see, you know, because she knows that Daryl and Andrea have gone to look for Sophia. So she is secretly hoping for them to come back with her daughter, but, you know, obviously that's not what happens. But Maggie talks to, like, Glenn while he prays, you know. He asks her if she believes in God, and she's like, it's more of a faith thing rather than a, you know, knowing that God is real, you know. So she tells him that, and Rick tells Laurie how Carl talked about the deer instead of like something dead. You know how he got shot, he could have said, where are we? He said, where are we? He could have said, you know, why did I get shot? How did I get shot? What happens next? Or, you know, something, is there walks outside, are we safe? But instead he talks about, you know, deer that's living, and, you know, it just sort of like, you know, just like touches Laurie in a sense, you know, because she obviously heard that bit, but she didn't like take it under so much consideration until Rick, you know, analysed it for her. So I guess it was kind of cool. But later Laurie decides to save Carl, basically, after she was a bit doubtful, you know, because she was a bit doubtful on saving Carl, you know, until Rick told her about the deer, and then, you know, when they're about to operate, you know, because they can't afford to lose any time, Hershel, speaking of, because, you know, he's already lost so much blood, Carl, or something, and his abdomen's swelling up, you know. Rick asks Laurie to choose whether they save Carl or leave him, and Laurie decides to save him, or at least try to save him. So just as they're about to go for the, you know, operation, Shane comes back alone. Hershel wants to tell Patricia, but he says, just tell Patricia after everything is, you know, happened, because, you know, he needs Patricia to work, and, you know, I'm kind of surprised that, you know, Otis being a really good friend, and, like, just being complete strangers, that he still went on the procedure with Carl, instead of, like, you know, just go and get out of my farm, to them, you know. It could have been like that, it could have, but instead he decided to save the little boy. But, like, you can see that Shane is in shock, and he tells Rick what happened, that, like, Otis said he'd keep him covered and everything, and Maggie's there, and, you know, he looks at Maggie, who's obviously crying because she said later to Glenn that she knew Otis from a very young age. And Daryl and Andrea come back, and Carl is kind of sad. You know, I kind of don't like Carol in the first season. You know, you understand why, don't you? Because, like, the fact that she just went up there to just look out, but she gets mad when Andrea and Daryl come back with no Sophia. Like, woman, they've gone out, risked their lives, and you're a bit angry. I understand that she's sad about losing Sophia, but she can't hope for them, like, to come back with Sophia just a minute. Obviously, she can't get her expectations too high, I should say, you know. Like, she should keep them minimal, like, not find her again, and when she finds her, it's going to be amazing, you know. But it's just that fact, you know, like, Carol quit it. But, you know, Dale gives Andrea her gun back, and, you know, he says, have you forgave me, to Andrea, and she says, I'm trying to forgive you. And, you know, Maggie talks to Glenn about Otis, and, you know, everybody from the group we know is, you know, outside, and Hershel manages to stabilise Carl's pulse, and, you know, they say, but we still need to tell Patricia about Otis's death. So Rick decides that Laurie will go to Carl, and him and Hershel will tell Patricia what Otis did. And, no, Laurie goes to Carl, she sees, like, that Patricia has, you know, is weeping, basically, and, you know, she goes to Carl and does that herself, and Shane at that moment walks in and sees Patricia weeping. Also, when he goes into Carl's room and, you know, Laurie having fallen out of him, she says stay, because he's obviously basically been the main person that saved Carl. You know, Hershel did operate, so he plays a big role in it, but without the, you know, equipment that Shane risked his life for, we wouldn't have seen Carl survive. I don't think, you know, it's highly unlikely. But she says stay, you know, she forgave him after, you know, she saved Carl basically. But we see the ending is basically, we see the first scene, the starting scene at the end, but it goes into a bit more detail. It's like, you know, Shane's just looking at his head, and like around there, wait, there, he's got a bit ripped, like a bit of hair literally ripped off, and, you know, it goes through flashbacks and him panicking. He's looking for the, you know, I can't remember what he was looking for. A shaver, I think it was, wasn't it? A shaver? I think it was. But he goes looking for something, and, you know, flashbacks to Otis's death, and we obviously manage to see it, and we see that Shane shoots Otis, you know, has a little brawl with him on the ground while Otis, like, you know, keeps hold of him. And that's how he gets his hair ripped out, you know, because Otis wanted to, you know, grab his hair and, like, pull him down with him, or, you know, just literally kill him too. But Shane manages to escape, and I see why he killed Otis, you know, because he was never going to make it out alone. You know, Otis might have done, but who wants to die in a zombie apocalypse? He was never going to make it out alone, so the only option was really to kill Otis and save yourself, you know, because you had the most chance of survival out in the wild, you know, basically to bring their things out. But that's how it ends, you know, so it's a really good cliffhanger ending, well, not cliffhanger ending, but really suspense ending, seeing what happened to Otis and how it's Shane's fault, you know, when he said he had nothing to do with it, he actually did, so it's kind of cool. But this episode, it was pretty dull at parts, you know, it was kind of pointless, in my opinion, because if you think about it, what happened was, they got the supplies, they saved Carl. That's all you needed to know out the whole episode. The main priority wasn't seeing how Shane escaped, seeing Laurie crying, seeing, you know, Patricia crying. Otis is deaf, okay, he's not main character, so, but that is kind of a good point too, but, you know, it's just not the most interesting episodes. That's why I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. You know, like I just said, it wasn't the most amazing episode, you know, it was kind of boring in my opinion. I understand the whole thingy, why they made it, you know, because it's a good, you know, like, jump from one episode to another, you know, all the things in between, but I think it is pretty pointless. So that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this episode, guys. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating below. And yeah, so this is Midget, and I'm going to see you guys in the next episode.